Don't get me wrong, I absolutely love working with the guys in the office. But sometimes, to talk to you guys, I just need a little bit of privacy. Also, why is it so blurry? Come on. Come on. Well, we'll deal with it when we get in the car. This car badly needs a wash, by the way. I think I'm going to do that this afternoon. Alright guys, this is one of those things that I probably should have talked about a very long time ago, because it's one of the most common criticisms or critiques that I get when it comes to talking about clothing and presence and body language, and that is the idea that you shouldn't judge a book by its cover. And you know what? I think that whole idea is garbage. People will always judge a book by its cover. Whether we should or we shouldn't is irrelevant, really, because, okay, if you think about it, you have so much data that you have to take in and process every single day. Every single day. There are millions and billions and bits of information that your brain needs to process. And so it stands to reason that what your brain is going to do is create as many shortcuts and as many kind of broad categories and then smaller categories as it possibly can. It's just common sense that that's the way that it's going to work. And that's why language, for example, if there wasn't anything... If your brain was incapable of categorizing the different sounds that come out of my mouth, go into the microphone, come out of the speakers, and into your ears, if there wasn't that categorization, then language would be meaningless. And you could say, well, morally, don't judge a word by its sound, blah, blah, blah. And no, absolutely, it has meaning because of what's intended and because of what's interpreted. Now, the same thing goes with your clothing and your appearance. And this whole topic came up today with the guys in the Odysseus Undertaking because I had a video show up in my Facebook feed. I'll link to it down here for you. And I don't even know who it was, or I'm sure that they were trying to promote this idea of don't judge a book by its cover. But basically they just took a bunch of hipsters and they paired them off, and then they had them guess based on the way that they dressed and talked and sounded whether or not they were Republicans or Democrats. And for the most part, people are assessing these things. It's really interesting to hear these people talk about their different criteria of what qualifies as a Republican or a Democrat, what that means, why this person does or does not qualify that way. They're vocalizing a thought process that you go through and I go through every single day. And there's nothing wrong with that. Whether or not we should or we shouldn't is irrelevant. As soon as you take the moral aspect out of it, it doesn't matter. Now, that being said, there are two things that I think are your responsibility. And these are the two responsibilities when it comes to judging a book by its cover that I try to live by. The first one is that I will gladly and happily put somebody in a category as quickly and effectively as I can. However, if I get new data and new information that tells me that I have categorized somebody or something incorrectly, it is my responsibility to take that new information and change the assessment. And so if I see a guy who is dressed incredibly well, he's in a good suit, and he looks great, he's got good body language and good posture, he's articulate, and then in your brain you think, okay, this could be a good guy. And then he does something awful, or he does something that's incredibly small and doesn't actually live up to the rest of what the standards are that he portrays. All of a sudden, it's my responsibility to kind of reassess and recalibrate based on what that new data is. So I think that that's where this idea of don't judge a book by its cover because you may be wrong is stupid, because you can, but if you're wrong, then change your assessment. And don't put any moral backing into whether or not you're right or wrong. It doesn't matter. If you're wrong, you reevaluate, you reassess, you recategorize, and you move on from there. Great, everybody wins. Now, the second obligation that you have is that you need to take responsibility for what it is that you are actually presenting to the rest of the world. And if you'll notice, both of those responsibilities, both of what I present and the way that I interpret what other people are presenting, fall on me. I can't control what other people do. I can't. I have no desire to do that. The only thing I can control is what I do. And so my responsibility is to make sure that if I'm assessing and I'm wrong, I reassess based on new information. And if I am presenting something, I am presenting it as accurately as I can. Now, obviously, in some situations, there are times when it is expedient to downplay certain things, or to hide certain things, or to cover certain things, or to just fly below the radar. And if that's the case, then I should be dressing and carrying myself in a way that's indicative of that. But for the most part, when I want to accurately present who I am, understanding that people are always going to be judging my book by my cover, then it's my responsibility to make sure that I am representing and presenting myself as accurately as possible. And if I'm not, then again, take the moral, take everything else out of it, and recalibrate and figure out how can I be better presenting myself so that people's assessments and categorizations of me are more accurate. That's it. The onus of responsibility is always on me. Your onus of responsibility is always on you. Don't get worried about the moral aspects of it. Don't get worried about judgmental this or non-judgmental that. Don't sweat it. Because not only will you never, but not only should you never, try to completely get rid of the quick categorizations and the shortcuts that your brain makes. You would go crazy if you tried to do that. So just make sure that you always have a good conscious override so that you can overcome those shortcuts when you need to and play with it that way. I would love to hear what you guys think. Leave me a comment below. Let me know if you feel like those are two burdens of responsibility that you should be shouldering. If you like this video, leave me a thumbs up. I'll catch you guys on the next one.